action.
What is going on, my friends? Hey, how are you? As we like to say. Welcome back to another edition of Unboxxd, the Unboxxd podcast. We talk about controversial things. We unbox them for you. We tie a little fucking ribbon on it, and we allow you to understand what's actually going on with inside of, again, controversial topics that we talk about. My name's Cody Adams. I'm your host. This is my beautiful, unbelievably great friend. His name is
Chris Boats.
Chris Boats.
Happy to be here.
Beautiful voice. You know?
We got 26 days. I'm fired up for this one.
I am too.
It's game time.
It's game time. Yeah, it's the final stretch. I mean, we got 26 days right now. We'll record another one really 2 weeks out. That's the whole plan. This is number 2 of 3.
Yep.
And yeah, I'm excited as well. There's a lot of things. The reason why we did it 2 weeks in between is because there's so much shit that happens over a 2-week period that we get to talk about those things.
I mean, it's every day between just election stuff to hurricanes. I mean, we're gonna get into all of it today.
We're gonna talk about everything. We're gonna go very high and low, and we're gonna go near, and we're gonna go far. We're gonna go deep. You guys like going deep, don't you? Our audience definitely likes going deep. Thank you for the love and support on the last podcast. That was awesome. Bunch of different views, bunch of different shares. I saw the analytics. That was super cool. We're international, so you can call him Mr. Worldwide. Yeah,
I do like Pitbull.
Yeah, which is good. Mr. 305.
Yeah.
No, we are international. Some people that are listening overseas, which is cool. But anyways, first things first, before we get into the VP debate, climate change and hurricanes, and we get into politics and faith, which I know we want to talk about, talking about issues that voters have, things that are on the top of your mind, things you would probably want to hear from us. If you're watching this, you want to hear our opinions on. Before we get into that, overall, how do you feel about what's going on right now?
Well, I think the Kamala, vibe tour is over, and it's interesting to see how polls are literally shifting in almost every swing state for Trump. Trump's been on a few different podcasts, had a few different interviews. He was just on the Andrew Schulz one, and apparently it's hilarious. I haven't watched it yet, but it's been highly recommended that we have to watch it, just crush it. And Andrew Schulz, who's a big comedian, all of comedy, it's interesting to see that, everything went from the Joe Rogans, the Shane Gillises, the Kill Tonys, the Andrew Schulz, they were all typically liberal, a lot of them in New York, and all of them have shift right wing because what is a comedian's job? It's to call out the hypocrisy, the delusion of the elites. That's what a comedian has always been. They
say the comedian's the last true orator, the last person that I can actually say
what we all want to say against.
They're the only people that didn't get canceled when cancel culture was such a big thing over the last couple of years.
Well, and they tried to.
They tried to cancel Dave
Chappelle. And Chappelle kept going, and then all of a sudden it's like so open. We're back to saying vulgar things. And honestly, that's what the world needs. Is we need to be able to say offensive things to each other so that these things are not offensive. Yeah,
but it's also fun to celebrate our differences and have shit and talk shit, because all of you, regardless of how you feel, you for certain have some sort of skeleton in your closet or something that you've said to your friends that maybe was a little off kilter, and that's okay. And that's okay.
Yeah.
That's what it's all about.
Especially if you're a guy. I mean, that's what we do.
Yes, literally talk
we
shit
literally, the way you know if another guy likes you is if he's talking shit to you.
Rousing. Yeah, camaraderie.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
So.
Well, Trump also went, or Trump went on, he's been on the Nelk Boys a few times, Lex Friedman. I mean, he's been on
everything.
Elon Musk, TCN, Tucker Carlson. There's been all kinds of different interviews that he's done. I know sorry to steal your thunder. We're open.
No.
Just your overall thoughts.
Keep going, yeah.
It's interesting because the only one that Kamala went to was Call Her Daddy.
Call Her Daddy.
Alex Cooper.
During the hurricanes.
Yeah.
During the North Carolina, people are starving. FEMA's blocking aid there.
Gonna get there?
I know. It just fires me up so much because that's what she was. Then she went on Colbert. Then she went to Stephen Colbert, who's the biggest leftist, just I don't want to say a bad word.
No, he is a douchebag.
I was going to say something worse.
I said fuck within the sorry.
I don't care about saying fuck. I just
first minute. I know we're already.
Who gives a shit?
Platform.
Did you see what she did though? She went on. I don't know if you've seen the clip yet. She went on there, and she's trying to connect, I guess, with like blue collar, really white people in middle America, the Midwest. And she's like, do you mind if we have a beer together? And he's like,
I saw that.
Let me bring out a beer. Miller High Life. Kamala Harris has never, she's an elitist, leftist who's from San Francisco, California.
She's never
and
pumped her gas
previously from Montreal, then from California, and born and raised in Canada. This
never
bitch
pumped her
has
gas.
never had a Miller Lite in her life.
She probably didn't even know what it tastes like. She probably liked it.
Yeah, she probably loved it. Me and Dougie, last time I had a Miller Lite, her husband Dougie, who's been literally reported that he used to be the biggest sexist, anti-woman, hired these supermodels to work for him, beat up his ex-girlfriend, and you're gonna give us a lecture on morality when that's the husband of the not even the
Presidential
first lady,
candidate.
vice presidential, the
presidential candidate.
It's crazy. It's just crazy. The
Drinking
hypocrisy.
Miller Lite High Life on Stephen Colbert.
Can you
Stephen
imagine?
Colbert
Yeah.
was the guy that had all of the people dress up in syringes.
Yes, remember?
Telling
Take
everyone
the vaccine, whatever it was.
it was insane.
It was. You were watching. It was
and
like
now
a Twilight
we have
Zone episode.
absolute proof from every source that you could possibly find that the vaccine, including Fauci himself, saying that it is a higher rate of myocarditis and cardiac attacks out there, period. It's like, we talked about this, and you're fucking welcome, because we talked about this in 2021, Robbie. When was that? 2021?
Early.
It was 2021.
And actually, we had to be very careful about it because we didn't want to get silenced and get this
No,
account
that was
killed.
that was the
That was a real
got
thing.
banned. That was the one that got banned and deplatformed.
Yeah.
They fucking struck COVID.
And we were
too.
right, and we're dumb mortgage guys.
Yeah,
and
thank you. Yes.
I literally, I remember I was at this like charity event, this gala or whatever, and I was talking to this one guy who happened to be a doctor, and I was telling how Danielle had to fill out her religious exemption for her work because she didn't want to take the vaccine. Sure. And I didn't know this guy. I assumed he was a conservative because the group I was hanging with was typically conservative. Turned out he's a big liberal, and he's like, it stops the spread. And I was like, doctor, I want you to remember this conversation because the next time I see you, I'm going to hold you to that. I'm going to make so much fun of you that a dumb mortgage guy knew more than you, because I know people that have taken this thing and they've still gotten and spread this thing. And mark my words, you're going to be wrong. And I have yet to see him, but I literally text that group all the time. I cannot wait.
Can't wait.
Cannot wait.
And yes, we're those guys that say I told you so and make fun of you.
Of course, because that's what happens.
Yeah. But anyways, he was the guy, we went off on a tangent. He was the guy that said the whole syringe thing, and there was dancing syringes, take the jab, all that kind of stuff. Anyways, she was on Call Her Daddy podcast, and then she went on this tour of trying to connect with people that she doesn't connect with. Just like you said, she's never drank a Miller High Life. She's never pumped her gas. She's never had to change a tire. She's never had to do any of the things that you and I, normal Americans, have ever done. Meanwhile, the country's suffering, and specifically her people in a swing state, by the way, in North Carolina. Something where that's up for debate right now. It's typically
very
red.
purple state,
It's a purple state right now. Those people were suffering. By the way, these podcasts, if you look at views, real views, if you look at the Trump views, you have hundreds of millions, if I'm not mistaken. I think it's about 104, so maybe not hundreds of millions. I apologize for the hyperbole, but
millions and millions.
Over 100 million views on the 789 podcast that he's done with Lex Friedman, Nelk Boys, and fucking Elon Musk. I can go on and on. Theo Vaughn, who's one of my favorites, by the way. It's incredible.
Incredible.
She had, you know how many views she had on Call Her Daddy?
Yeah, I think it was like 160,000.
164,000.
Yeah, something like that.
And counting. Anyways, opening thoughts. Anything else you think of? Just thoughts in general. Where we're at right now, we got 26 days.
Well,
left.
I mean, you look at the data now. I mean, if you go to a lot of these pollsters today, every single swing state has shifted even if Trump was down, it's shifted like 5 points in favor of Trump. And what's interesting is Trump voters are most of them are not replying to these polls. So it's actually, Trump has always been difficult to poll, even the pollsters will say, because all of us, would you ever respond to one of those?
I was going to ask you why. No, we're fucking busy working.
We're busy working. But also, I don't trust you either. I don't trust you. Like, I don't know what you're going to do. I just don't trust you because you've shown that you're not trustworthy. Now what's really interesting, and this just came out, so a lot of the Vegas and a lot of these gambling apps, the DraftKings, and MGM, you can now bet on the election. And historically, they never allowed that to happen. And so
historically, you've never really been allowed to vote on sports. Guys, you guys don't remember.
That's true.
I mean, you talk about 7 years ago, you couldn't bet on sports unless you had a bookie.
Yeah.
Period. You guys forget about this. I had a bookie.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
love my bookie. I
yeah.
still kind of use my bookie. I'm gonna be honest with you. But you had to have a
just got out
bookie,
of it,
or you
dude.
had. I know, fucking fucked. You had to have a bookie, or you had to go to Vegas, or you had to
Yeah.
go somewhere where that was legal. Now you could grab your phone, go to ESPN Bet.
Yeah,
a Disney
bet on the game right
company.
now.
Yeah, this is insane.
Yeah.
Anyways, I apologize.
No, but where I was going is, so now you can do it, and apparently the logic why they didn't ever want that to be a thing was because once you get Vegas involved and once you get big gambling involved, well, if there's any fraud or anything that meddled with the election, you can now sue and investigate because people have financial gain on the election. So this is kind of a checkmate move.
Whoa, I didn't.
Yeah.
Dude, this is. I mean, we
Because
talk all the
now
time.
now
We're best
you
friends.
have every case is allowed. Because if Trump is up and on these polls he's up 10, 15 points, all the money is on Trump. Well, there's got to be some reason why it changed. And if Kamala ends up winning, there's going to be investigations at the yin yang. Mark my words.
Holy shit from the FinCEN and everything
Yeah,
else.
yeah. How did it switch?
Wow, I didn't know that. One, two, just for you guys that are not financially literate, points means percentage points.
Yep.
So 10 to 15 percentage points. So percent from
Yeah.
55 to 40 would be 15 percentage points. Some people don't know that.
Yeah, yeah.
You gotta watch
Anyways,
that
it's really fascinating. These next 26 days are going to be absolutely wild. Also, I'm going to throw this out there too. It literally just came out that they, I don't know if it was, I think it was the FBI that arrested an Afghan refugee that came into this
Yeah.
country. But not only that, this Afghan refugee worked for the CIA.
At some point in
So
Afghanistan, correct.
the CIA is denying that they ever let this person into the country, and so Mayorkas, who's just an absolute rat, just sells out this country left and right, doesn't give a shit. He didn't. He refused to answer any questions. So interviewers were actually, thank God, journalists are doing their job and actually questioning authority and holding them to the fire. Says, who did you DHS let him? How'd this guy get in? How'd this guy get him? He refused to answer. He says, I'm only focused on hurricane stuff right now. I refuse to answer. We can talk about this at a later date. Afghan was planning a terrorist attack, 27 years old, and worked for the CIA. What does
So-
that tell you?
So two things. One, speaking of journalists holding feet to the fire and actually asking the hard questions. I don't know if you saw the 60 Minutes with Kamala Harris.
Oh,
But
yeah.
she was asked about
Which is a publicly owned and
publicly
yeah.
owned. You have, and she actually drew the hard guy.
Yeah.
The hard interview.
He did good.
He did a great job. If you
Yeah.
actually watch the uncut version, now 60 Minutes is under fire because the journalist that was interviewing Kamala and asking questions asked great questions
Yeah.
and held her feet to the fire.
Yes.
And her responses were not the way that the cabal, the establishment, and the people that pull the strings, not the way that they would want. Specifically when they're talking about Israel and Iran and the Houthis and Hezbollah and so on and so forth, and the Hamas, and how that whole thing's playing out in the Middle East. She talked about the different things that she was doing and that the Biden-Harris administration was doing that led to the situation that we were in and how it was part of her plan and their plan altogether. And they edited the fucking conversation to what would fit the narrative
To make her look sharp.
to make her look sharp
And
ultimately to
concise.
make And there's many of interviews that are happening. So it's very, very interesting. We also have, to that point, we also have the head of ICE. I know we talked about this last episode, but he just came out again
Yep.
and said that the Biden-Harris administration put pressure on him and ICE and Border Security and Border Patrol to not talk about the people that they let in. He said in 2019, they had somewhere between 20 and 24, I forget how many he said, of people that were on the active terror watch list, people that are bad humans. Everybody knows it. Everybody's looking for these people. They found about 19 to 20 or 21 or whatever it was, people on that list. In 2020, that number went up to 40. In 2022 and 23, he said there were over 100 each year, including this year already, and we're not even through the year. Meaning that there are bad human beings on a terror watch list
That hate this country.
that are coming through the southern border, and we started to find them. So I don't know. I had to talk about those things. It's just absolutely insane.
Yeah.
The 60 Minutes conversation, and then all these things that are coming out now.
Well, and I mean, what it feels like is they've already tried 2 assassination attempts, which we talked about last time. It feels like they have their backs against the wall, and they know that if Trump wins, he's going to come for them. And you see them spin it, right?
What do they spin it to?
They basically say Trump is a dictator, and on day one, he's going to throw people in jail. So he's basically going to do so. If there is treason, if your politicians have sold you out, wouldn't it be appropriate for the person that was democratically elected, this leader, to actually go after the folks? And now that they know that they're caught and they're guilty, they're trying to spin it like that's so undemocratic and Trump would be a dictator. It's called accountability. They know it's like that. You got caught cheating. And if you get me like that, that's not right. Like you should give me a break. You should give me a break. They're so scared, and that's where they will do legitimately anything.
They know
anything.
They know,
and they're bringing in refugees. So don't be surprised if prior to this election, there's going to be probably another assassination attempt.
Yes.
There can be cyber attacks anytime. Verizon just went out. Weird. It's almost like they're testing it. Testing if what happens.
So a lot of things, we run mortgage companies. For those of you that are first-time listeners and maybe not long-time listeners, we do things like testing. We'll send out mailers, or we'll buy some leads and test them out and so on and so forth, because we want to see what the response rate is. Mm-hmm. We want to see
if it's something we should roll
happens.
out nationwide.
If it's something that should be awesome, then yeah. So you look at Verizon, you look at things that are happening currently, internet going down, so on and so forth, and you could say, well, Cody, that could be, Cody, Chris, look, that could be just those are isolated occurrences. Well, I don't know if you remember 2022 or 2023, but I don't remember. AT&T went down over the last 5 years. I don't remember anything other than that. Do you? No. Because people
just
forget about
timing.
Things.
Weird timing, right?
I also think not only do we have a situation where there might be a terrorist attack or a cyber attack or so on and so forth. I've been saying this for a long time, and I truly believe, and this is, for me, but I'm on Trump Force 44 or 47. Sorry, 44. 47. I'm a poll watcher. I'll be watching polls on election day.
Love it.
I'm a Trump captain, so I'm calling voters and trying to get them. If you haven't voted in the last 2 cycles and you're a registered Republican, I'm calling you. I'm knocking on your door. I'm delivering signs, Trump van signs to your house. That's what I'm doing now, because I can't not say that I didn't do everything I possibly could.
Because this is important.
With that said, the other reason why I'm going to troll a poll watcher, which is kind of funny. I'm not at a strip club. I'm watching the voter polls.
Big poll watcher.
But it's also funny just in general.
Yeah.
I'm also not gay.
Yeah.
So there's that. Not a poll watcher. But I do watch polls. I'm going to watch a poll on November 5th. And I'm assigned to one specifically. I'm assigned to one specifically. And look, man, I've said it for a while. I think you have all these people coming through the southern border, okay? You have terrorists coming through the southern border.
Yep.
You have, with all due respect, terrorists that are Muslim coming through the southern border, that are hijabs, that are people that blow themselves up, whatever they're called. I forget the
extremists,
term for whatever. The extremist, crazy human beings.
Sure.
What are they called, Robbie? No, fucking people that fucking blow themselves up. There's a word for it. No, suicide bombers. Okay, it'll come to me. Long and short, I got a lot of you in this today. Long and short, I genuinely believe they're coming through. I think they're going to scare the fuck out of voters. I think they're going to, on election day.
One mass shooting in Arizona.
Here's how it works. Nope, not in Arizona.
Everywhere.
Hear me out.
Okay, all right.
There's time zones, right? So if I blow up on the East Coast a voting poll at 9 a.m., that's 6 a.m. here, scares the shit out of the entire fucking nation all the way through the West.
Attacks everywhere.
Scared, attacks everywhere, rumors of this attack. Then most of the people across America are scared to go to a voting poll. They won't go. I'm not going to go. This place just got blown up. There's 3,000 dead or 1,600, whatever it is. Then I'm not going to go.
Of course.
All right. So then what happens? Then you go to mail-in votes.
Yep.
And not only do you go to mail-in votes, you have, over the last 2-3 weeks, you have people mailing in votes and voting early. And if they're voting early, guess what happens? You know which way the vote's already leaning.
Yeah.
So you have an idea of where things are going. Then you have this catastrophic, terrible event happen from terrorists. And then guess what? As time goes on, people don't want to go to the polls, they'll go mail in their votes, and you can highly, highly, highly change and traffic what those mail-in votes look like. So I don't know. I hope not. I hope that's not the case. God willing, that's not the case. But we'll see what happens. So
I mean, they'll do anything it takes. So the support just has to be overwhelming in this direction, which is why we're doing this, right? And as a poll watcher, too, I think you keep your eyes out because I've seen so much content.
Closed.
And your mouth closed always. But my point is, it's good that you're doing that. You're doing everything you can. And ultimately, that's why we're doing this, too, because unfortunately, journalists across this country have been bought out by big corporate. And journalism has always been the enemy of the elites, the enemy of power. A journalist's job was to find stories and find dirt and expose secrets of the elites and the corruption in the world. Unfortunately, what the elites realize is, wait, hang on. You're telling me I could just buy media companies? I can just buy radio stations? I can just
Didn't someone just do that last 2 months?
Soros bought 220 different
220 radio stations across the U.S.
So think about that. So back during the Revolutionary War, journalism was a very important thing. It's in the Bill of Rights and all this stuff, the right to media and so on and so forth. And it's because journalists were the one to expose the king and expose the secrets and expose the corruption and get the message out to the people. They really work for the people.
Sure.
And that's what we're doing, is we're working for the people. We're trying to expose the corruption going on because our mainstream media, who goes to the same cocktail parties as, the Bidens or these elite politicians, the left and the right, frankly.
Yeah, correct.
They're in bed with them.
Right. Yeah.
And also the people who own the companies are billionaires, the Murdochs and these other big guys that own not just Fox News, but every radio station. And they ultimately control and dictate the perception and the narrative of an entire nation, the United States of America. So that's something that I think we really should look at, where there is no private ownership of these news stations, because it really should be owned outright by the people.
Imagine creating some sort of stock market or market in general where the people can own media and news outlets. There's a reason why Priscilla and Shapiro and Joe Rogan, all these different places, maybe ours one day, if you share the show, will surpass those of the mainstream media from a view standpoint. Maybe. We hope. That's the hope. That's the case.
I think they will. I mean, viewership, you compare
but
Rogan.
Those do already.
They do, and because people
Tucker
know.
Carlson was at 10 million views per night, 7 to 10.
Because also they're authentic, right? So you know when you listen to Joe Rogan, you know his views, right? He's middle ground. Right now he's more conservative because he's a patriot. He loves America. You know when you listen to Ben Shapiro, he's obviously biased conservative.
Yeah.
But what happens is you get these Rachel Maddows and these CNNs and these Don Lemons and they get on their Chris Cuomo's and they claim to be, we're middle of the ground. We are unbiased.
Chris Cuomo is the biggest flip-flopper I've ever met.
He's the biggest rat ever, dude.
He's one side one day, one
I don't
side
know why
the next.
Patrick Bet-David ever put him on his
I
thing.
don't know either, man.
It's a bad move.
Well, it's because, again, you look, man, you can't believe, let me tell you something right now, viewers. You can't believe everything you see. Even salt looks like sugar, baby.
Yeah.
What I will say is this, to your point. Get out and vote. You have to make it so overwhelmingly, I don't give a fuck. You watch this show, you're probably aligned with us. Real talk. But send this to your friends and family, because the reality is, no matter what side of the coin you land on, the more people that vote, only 66% of voters voted last in 2020, and less than that in 2016. Registered voters.
Mm-hmm.
Get your ass out and vote. Vote often, vote early. Go to the poll on election day if you can. Bring your friends and family. Like for us, I think I've said this on my walk dot, but for us, we're coming in as a company. We're handling business, and at noon, we're gone. It's like, an election, or not it's like a holiday for us. Like it is your civic duty, no matter what. Like if you're at a company right now, and they're saying that, maybe you vote before work, or maybe you vote after work, and you see every year, every 4 years, or every 2 years, I should say, polls don't close so late, and there's people that don't get to vote because their employer won't allow them to go vote.
Which is crazy. I don't know why it's not a national holiday.
It has to be a national holiday. Correct.
Everyone off.
It needs to be.
One day.
Bring your friends.
Bring your ID.
Bring your family. Bring your spouse. Guys, the biggest opportunity, specifically men, let me tell you right now, the biggest opportunity for you as a male, as the patriarch and as the leader of your family, is to bring your wife to go vote. So many times, half of the population is women. you look at like the black vote and the Mexican vote and all these different votes. You look at different percentages. Like, for example, the black vote, 14% of our population is black. That's a big vote, but it's a small percentage relative. That's why it's called the minority vote, relative to the big picture.
Yeah.
Okay. Men, people that are watching, 50% of our nation are women. That is the vote that we need to bring to the forefront. So grab your spouse, your significant other, your sister, your mother, and bring them with you to the polls on November 5th.
Yeah.
Let's get in. That was our introduction.
Yeah. I mean, we're fired up.
That was our introduction. Pastor Mark says that all the time. It's fantastic. That was our introduction. If you'll let us get to our thesis and our points, here we go. We're going to talk about the VP debate. We're going to talk through the hurricanes themselves, some faith stuff, and then some issues. I got a piece of paper right here, some facts, because you guys always say that you want to fact check us. We're going to fact check you. Some issues that the voters care about. Let's talk about the VP debate. We have Mr. J.D. Vance, senator from Ohio, and then Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota. They went at it last Tuesday night. The Tuesday in between our two episodes, one that we're recording, one that we released. We didn't get to talk about it. Now we get to talk about it. Your initial thoughts, anything you want to go through on the VP debate. Vice President.
Initial thoughts, I thought this debate at least attempted to be a little more middle ground. And one of the rules that was very specific when both parties agreed to this was there'd be no live fact-checking. Right? Because fact-checking, as we know, is incredibly biased. It depends on who's fact-checking you, whether or not something is arguably a fact, right?
It's also very disruptive.
Totally. It's completely disruptive, and it shows the bias immediately. And I thought J.D. Vance clearly, I just think he's highly intelligent. He's very much a politician in the sense his answers are perfect, but he doesn't get phased. He doesn't get rattled. There's nothing Tim Walz could have said that could have rattled him. I really like the part where J.D. Vance, they tried to fact check him about Biden's program of basically bringing in these Somalian immigrants into this country on this basically illegal pass that was not a legal documented immigrant in this country. It's not like they had a work visa, and he basically fact-checked them when they were trying to say, no, and they tried to fact-check him, and he just absolutely crushed them. So I thought that was good. I thought Tim Walz, he looked lost. I think facial expressions mean a lot during debate. You know, J.D. Vance had the classic Jim Halpert, like looking at the camera, just really knew where the camera was, nailed that. Tim Walz kind of looked flustered, had big eyes, like looked frazzled, was constantly writing stuff down. It's like, what are you really writing down during debate? Like, let's calm that down. Overall, I think most people would agree that J.D. Vance won, and he did what he needed to do, which Trump should have done in his debate, which was focus on the fact that Kamala has been VP for 3.5 years. And if she could bring about change, why hasn't she? And she was just on The View, and they asked her, which that's a friendly crowd. They were basically bringing on there to massage her and say, Kamala, we love you so much, because The View's just a joke. And they asked her, what would you change from the Biden administration? A laydown. All she had to say is, obviously I support Joe Biden, I respect him, but there's a couple things I would have changed a little differently in terms of immigration, and that's what would have gotten her so many bonus points because she actually came out. The problem is she said there's really nothing on the top of her mind that she can disagree with, which implies exactly what we've been saying, which is what has happened the 3.5 years is exactly what will continue moving forward.
I mean, we'll get to. We're also, so just so you guys are aware, a little precursor or a sneak peek. We're actually going to dive very deep into both Trump and both Harris and their policies, not only economically, immigration, foreign policy. We're going to talk about abortion. We're going to talk about everything right before the election on our third episode. I just wanted
so you know what you're voting for.
So you know what you're voting for.
And we're going to pull it directly from their websites. We're not going to
Correct.
We're not going to bring hyperbole or our theory into what they're actually going to do.
Yeah, and then we're going to go through the real numbers, the real implications of that, what the future looks like with each policy. And yes, we're just two dumb mortgage guys, but we also have a lot of common sense, so we've been right 95% of the time on all these different things. I think a few things. I think you're right. I think the VP debate specifically, it was way more presidential. I think that it was very nice to hear. It was very pleasant to watch, regardless of how you feel of who won. It was very cordial at most parts, which I think is nice, because I think that It shows the American people, that you can have civil discourse and disagree on many things, core values that you have, but you can still have a debate and talk to somebody with respect and not disrespect them or cuss or get emotional. I think they did a really good job of that. I agree with you. I think, for me, when you look at who you pick, so Trump, when he picked J.D. Vance, I'm deep as you are into politics. I candidly didn't know who he was. And over the last 60 or so days, I think almost 70, maybe almost 80 days, that he's been chosen to be Trump's running mate, I've done a deep dive. And I've listened to a lot of videos. I've gone through and I watch Hillbilly LG. I watch all,
really good.
It's really good. So I am a firm believer that he's the future. I am such a J.D. Vance fan. I say all this, you might not even listen now, but I don't care. The guy grew up in the craziest situation, very similar to how I got brought up, so it's very hit home with me. Then you have a situation where he goes into the Marine Corps. And he's a badass Marine. And he's a stud.
Yep,
and then he goes
serves.
to fucking Yale. And he graduates from Yale. Then he wants to serve his country even more so and gets into politics because he has the gift of gab. Like you said, he's a polished communicator.
Yeah.
Candidly, you can learn a lot. So like when I go to seminars or when I hear people speak in our office or you speak or anybody, I'm watching your delivery, how you speak, the communication
timing,
style, the tone, the tonality. That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah,
the physiology. He's one of the best orators and communicators that we've ever seen. I'm telling you right now, the way that he can respond to something, then call out someone's name, and then actively answer the question that person answered. Unbelievable.
It is. Super impressive.
So I'm very impressed. My point is I'm very impressed by who Trump chose. He's 38 years old, and we have a bright future with him, Vivek, and others.
Yeah.
You look at the other side. Guys, whether you like to hear it or not, Kamala Harris specifically when she got picked up by Biden, he got a lot of flack because she was the most liberal senator.
Yes.
She was left of Bernie Sanders, and there was so much communication from the news stations that you love and watch, which is CNN and others, CNBC, all these other companies that are very, very left-leaning. He got so much flack, Biden, in 2020 by picking Kamala Harris because of how left and how liberal and how crazy that she is. Now she's in the driver's seat, and she chose the same person. This human being is so left of everything, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And yes, he's like a good old boy. He's a dude. He's a football coach, and
Well, they try to spin that.
sure.
That's what they wanted, is try to attract to Midwest. But at the end of the day, Midwestern folks do not align with Tim Walz.
I know. Even
Tim
his
Walz
own
is a
family
cuckold.
doesn't.
He's a
Even
cuckold.
his family doesn't.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah.
Walls for Trump. Yeah, which is
Crazy.
interesting. But anyways, you look at who they chose. They chose someone that's a killer, a badass. Trump, chose the badass, this guy. The future. And then they chose this guy who's the past.
Correct.
Who's somebody that
Correct. No threat to her.
No threat to her, and will just do whatever she says. Does not is a yes person, is a yes man, and ultimately is just a candidate to fill the slot because his fucking political career was over anyways. And you think about the debate specifically, he got caught lying. And look, I don't care what type of character that you are. I don't care what you believe in. I don't care if you're left. I don't care if you're right. I don't give a fuck. But what I do care about is there's a few things, including in the Ten Commandments, that talks about lying. When he got asked about the China and how he went there after college and National Guard and so on and so forth.
The, what was it? The Tiananmen Square
tank thing, and he was standing out in front of it. He lied to the American people. He had an opportunity for redemption. They served it up to him. Can you explain? And he said he was a knucklehead.
I just said
He basically continued to lie. And then not only did he continue to lie, they recircled back to have him one more chance. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Fool me 3 times, fuck the peace signs. Let the chopper let it rain on you. That's what J. Cole says. You fooled me once. All right, you lied to me. Everyone knows it. You lied again in the debate. And then the third time we allow you here. Are you sure this is what happened? Here you go. Are you sure for the third time?
You don't answer the question. Please answer the question. That was impressive.
And
I
he lied
respected that.
for the third time. And that was so telling to me on his character. That's a person, ladies and gentlemen, that is the right hand, the second in command to your country if you vote for Harris and for Wall. So, I don't know, man. It was very interesting. I think that, again, they agreed on a few things. I think that was kind of cool because I think Common Sense America can agree on a couple things.
Yeah.
But you also have to have your morals and standards, and you have to stand on ceremony sometimes.
But, okay, so let me ask you this. So how did we get Trump in the first place? Okay. Well, we got Trump in the first place because we followed 8 years of Obama, where Obama basically demonized Republicans, and then they started with this whole white hatred and white guilt and basically blamed the white man for everything. And even Mitt Romney, who now the left praises because Mitt Romney is anti-Trump, they said he was going to put black people back in chains, and they fucking crucified him when he was the opponent. But again, once they're anti-Trump, now they're the most decent man and decent conservative. My point is Trump came as a result of 8 years of them. And Trump was the fighter. Trump was the pit bull who came in and said, fuck you.
If you're going to Kendrick Lamar, not like us. They're not like us.
If you're going to fuck with me, then guess what? Here's our pit bull. Here's our fire. This is our Mike Tyson. Good luck. And this guy has been relentless. They have thrown everything at him. They've tried to kill him. This is how we got Trump. And I'm sorry, I don't really want, because we're no longer a Kennedy Democrats and old school conservatives where we both have aligned values of we both love America, we both love capitalism. We just, one wants more social benefits, one wants, more pro-business, one wants more regulation, one wants less. It is now, I'm sorry, Cody.
You're right.
We are not being cordial anymore. One side believes that a man can be a woman can be a man. One side wants men in your daughters and perhaps my future daughter's bathroom.
Yeah.
One side openly, if you said, do you love America or do you hate America? One side, the majority will say that they hate America.
Sure. What I mean by cordial is that it was nice to see that you can have civil discourse and not kill each other. Which I think you and I do a really good job of when we're out in public and so on and so forth. Look, a lot of people think that Chris and I will go out to places and shove our political views down your throat. We might be wearing a MAGA hat, but we're going to be nice and have a fucking cocktail and have a good time.
And I wish that were the case. Where I'm at this point, Cody, is that the sides are no longer aligned.
Sure.
And unfortunately, what you do when you have a pest who completely disaligns with you is you honestly kick the shit out of them into submission, just like it used to be in the olden days. The internet gave people so much of a voice, and this ideologies and this wokeism and this pro-socialism, pro-communist. This has no place in America.
Yeah.
And as much as I liked it, was nice. It was like actually kind of boring in the sense of like it was just calm. There was no.
It was also like
we almost
every
watched
other
debates.
debate
We almost
for the last
watched
30 years.
Correct, but we almost watch the debates now as like a WWE match, or like a roast, where it's like you're watching, you're like, oh, let's fucking go. It's almost like entertainment to this point because of how Trump did it. But again, Trump was our pit bull.
Yeah.
So my point is, I don't think, especially as a Christian, that you can just you wouldn't be kind and cordial to the devil. And unfortunately, I think it has gotten that far where one side is legitimately delusioned, ideological, anti-America, and wants to destroy our way of life in a unanimous amount of ways, which we have gone over for the last 2 years, that I don't know if I want to see cordial anymore from our leaders.
Amen.
That's my opinion.
Praise be.
Some would disagree.
Praise be. Sometimes you have to be the lion, and sometimes you have to be the lamb. And you poke the lamb enough, they're going to turn into a lion. Yeah. Jesus was both.
Some would disagree, but
here's what I'll say on this. So 12 out of the last 16 years, you have voted Democratic. Think about that. Where we are now hasn't happened overnight. Has it escalated tremendously because of this absolutely trash and terrible administration? Sure. But over the last 16 years, 12 of the last 16 years has been Democratic, and only 4, which is Trump, only 4 have been on the Republican side. You have people right now, and I just had this conversation with somebody else. You have people right now, Mitt Romney, Kerry, everybody you could possibly think of that is of the established political right, Republican, is now flipping sides and endorsing Kamala Harris.
It's like the Dick Cheneys. Yeah,
Well, why Dick Cheney? Everybody. Why is that? Well, because they know, and all these celebrities and everybody's now all of a sudden switching sides. And why would they be doing that, Chris? Well, they know that if our pit bull, if Mr. 305, if Trump goes in and he actually exposes the Epstein client list, which he should, he actually goes in and drains the swamp, which he promised he would, and he halfway did, but obviously the whole time he's sitting there straight staving off and doing the Heisman pose to fucking impeachments every fucking
Russia collusion, all this
6 seconds.
nonsense.
He actually does the things he does. Those people, politicians should not be career politicians. Career politicians and political work have only started over the last 30, 40 years. You got to realize that politicians, specifically in politics, were people that were leaders in the community. They wanted to step up and for 2, 4, 6, 8 years come in, affect change, and move on with their lives and go back to their lives. It's only until recently, our lifetime, that career politicians have been a thing. These career politicians are now endorsing Kamala. Why? Because she wants to be a career politician. Yeah. So does Tim Walz, and they know that that's the safe place that I can't get exposed. Now, a lot of folks are tattletelling and talking shit about Elon Musk, who was Democrat, about RFK Jr., who was Democrat, and Tulsi Gabbard, who was Democrat and still is Democratic. You people, I don't say you people a lot, but you people are calling them Jersey switchers because they're moving from one side to the other. But what you don't understand is they never move. Mm-hmm. The scale of democracy moved. The Democratic side has moved. They have not moved.
Yeah.
Trump, even prior to 2016, was a Democrat. He's been registered as a Democrat his whole life. When you see something move as a scale and you stay the same with your morals and your standards and your values, that is what happened, but you fail to see it. So I ask you, the same people that you're calling Jersey switchers, why aren't you calling the people like Dick Cheney and Mitt Romney and everybody else who's flipping sides now, why aren't you calling them the same thing? Actually, why aren't you calling yourself the same thing? Mm-hmm. Because it wasn't just but 4 months ago that your jersey said Joe Biden on it.
Right.
But then all of a sudden, when he got ousted by his own party in a coup, you changed your fucking jersey to Kamala Harris. How does that happen? That's interesting that you could be a pot calling the kettle black. So, anyways, sorry to go off on a tangent.
No, I mean that was awesome, and that's very well said. And at the end of the day, like you said, it's the value-based people that have their values, that they will not bend a knee on their values, that have not changed. The RFK. I'll have a quick story. It's so funny you say this. So, one of my coworkers, Rob, he has a friend who's more liberal, and
I know who you were talking about.
Anyway, so Rob was talking to this guy, and he started out, who was the first person he liked. He didn't like Biden, so he wasn't going to vote for Biden, but he hated Trump, right? And then so he was an RFK guy, right? Sure. He's like, I love RFK. I'm going to vote for RFK.
Sounds like somebody I know.
Then RFK endorsed Trump, and he's like, oh, well, I don't like RFK. And then same guy was a big fan of Andrew Schulz. Like, Andrew Schulz is so funny. He was pushing his content. Andrew Schulz is so funny. He was a liberal from New York. And now Schulz is a pro-Trump guy. And so, Rob calls this guy out and say, what do you do? Like, who are you going to support now? And it's just, they have this hatred of this one individual Trump, so bad.
Derangement syndrome.
It's a real thing.
And no matter what you say, you hate that person.
You can bring facts. You can bring anything.
But at some point, you got to wake up. And are you going to be the last person to wake up? Are you the last person in the bell curve of early adopters, late adopters, and so on and so forth? How long is it going to take for you to open your eyes? I don't know. Let's talk about climate change. Actually, you know what? Talking about policies and faith real quick before we get to climate change. Sure. I think that's a good point to land on morals and values and what's going on.
Sure.
You look at politics and faith and how that whole thing works. Do you believe that you can be a Christian and be Democrat?
Absolutely not.
Correct.
You cannot.
Why?
Well, because the Bible lays out very clearly everything. I mean, One side is literally anti-religion, one side is or anti-Christianity, one side is pro-Christianity as a whole, right? One side is anti-life, one side is pro-life.
Correct. Even Catholicism and many others.
There at the end
Religion
of the
in general.
end of the day, if you have faith and if you claim to be a Christian, right, the Bible is on top of you and you change your values and your decisions and your beliefs based off of what the Bible tells you to. Well, what I think anyone who's a Democrat and claims to be a Christian, what they're doing is putting it on the ground and they're standing on top of the Bible and saying,
Great
well,
point.
I'm above the Bible. And in fact, the Bible is only applicable in supporting the decisions that I like. And in the places where it disagrees with me, I just don't care to look at those parts.
Correct. The Bible can change you, or you think that you can change the Bible. And
Yes.
The Bible is 66 books over the last 3,000 years, written of
Clearly.
clearly written of people and of Jesus Christ and the disciples that be. 66 different books talking about how you should live your life. Something that has stood the test of time, that is in every single nightstand at every fucking motel out there. There is a Bible. Why is there, no matter what religion, creed, color, sexual orientation you are, there's a Bible, and the Bible will either change you or you think that you can change the Bible and live outside of the way that God wants you to live. And I think it really lines up. I mean, you can go through the list, but the first thing is abortion, just like you said.
Right.
It's pro-life.
I mean, I mean, my position on that is very clear. So I have 3 reasons why I am pro-life, okay? The first is, I think, as any civilized society, man or woman, but as an adult specifically, it is our duty to protect those that cannot defend themselves.
Sure.
So that goes to if there's a puppy on the street. If I saw someone kicking a puppy, that guy's getting hurt. If I saw someone abuse a child, that person is getting hurt. Like, that's just not tolerable in a civilized society.
Sure.
And I can't, someone who has Down syndrome or whatever, I will defend that for handicap.
Those that cannot defend themselves, we will defend.
Them. That's a civilized society that has been transcendent of any culture. When you are an able-bodied man, you stand up for those that can't defend themselves. There is nothing that can defend itself less than an unborn child in the womb. Simple as that. Simple as that. My second thing is, the second argument is, well, this baby's going to be born into a tough environment, a poor environment, and that's just not fair to this baby. Well, guess what? There are poor children all across the world that if you said, would you rather be alive or dead, they would fight for their life. And there are so many people that came from that background that have climbed out, or have had children that climbed out, right? So who are you to say that because it's going to be in a tough, which we grew up in semi-tough environments too, should we have just not had the child because perhaps our parents didn't have the financial means? Or perhaps we were going to be born into a tough environment? Absolutely not. And the third one, which is the most frustrating one, is I do believe in freedom of choice.
Sure.
Well, and your choice is when you decide to engage in unprotected sex. I have had sex with plenty of people, okay? And how many pregnancies have I had? 0. And do you know why? Because I'm engaging in a risky behavior, so you can wear condoms, you can wear, have birth control.
Pull out.
You can pull out. It's not rocket science, guys.
You have oral
it's really
sex,
not.
anal sex. You can do all kinds of different things.
And so what I feel these leftists and especially these women are arguing is, going on this Call Her Daddy podcast where they're talking about the Glock 9000 is they're not saying, well, we want a choice. They're not arguing for a choice because they have a choice. They have a choice to have sex, right? They have a choice to be safe. What they're basically arguing, it would be as if I'm arguing, well, I want to be able to drink and drive, right? Well, am I legally allowed to drink now?
Yes.
Yes. Am I legally allowed to drive?
Can't do them together.
I can't do them together. And why is that? Because if I do that, I risk hurting myself. I risk hurting others. That can have an impact on their family, my family, the community.
Same with
I put people at risk. It is no different. You're allowed to have sex. You're allowed to have unprotected sex. But guess what, guys? There are consequences for your actions. Yeah. And when you engage in that and you engage in this reckless behavior, there are consequences for your actions. And with an abortion, you are killing someone 100% kill rate.
Yeah.
It's almost worse than drinking and driving because guess what? Drinking and driving, probably 99 times out of 100, you're going to be fine. And it's going to take that one time until you actually do something harmful. And legally, if you drink and drive, you are fucked, especially in Arizona.
Yeah.
So it's just absolutely infuriating to me that what they want is just to be reckless. I want to be able to do what I want. I want no consequences for my actions. I want to be able to. Should we let criminals just rob because they want to rob? No, we have laws. There are consequences for your actions. You had the choice. Now, where I'm okay with it, honestly, which is perhaps not really Christian, is almost Trump's position.
I feel the same.
And this
So,
is, let's be honest
agree.
about this. You see these Kamala Harris ads going on that Trump's going to stop IVF. That's nonsense. He's never said that
He actually
ever.
has enhanced it and put more money, government
Ding,
money
ding.
towards it.
Exactly. The other one is
Fact.
the other one is, my wife, our child died in her womb and they weren't allowed to give an abortion. And because of Donald Trump, her life was at risk too. Donald Trump has clearly 1,000 times, go look it up, don't take my word for it,
Rape, incest, mother's life.
Protect for life. That's it. Rape, incest, and protect.
Pretty fucking common sense approach
Correct.
to a situation.
If something goes wrong in a pregnancy, a baby isn't making it, or it's going to impact the mother, Trump wants you to have allowed to have an abortion.
Because you know why? Because then you can go have another child. Children are a blessing. That's what it says in the Bible. It's not about left or right. It's about up or down. Children are a blessing.
Yep.
So if you look at that common sense approach, of which, by the way, Trump gets a lot of flack for. I feel the same. You feel the same. When you look at rape, incest, and the mother's life, those three things, they make sense. And to your point of drunk driving, Chloe and I talk about this all the time. It's actually her idea. You should have to have an application for an abortion.
Yes.
The consequences should get severe. If you have one and
Misdemeanor,
you make a mistake, felony,
jail
you're
time.
going to fucking jail.
Yeah.
You have a third one. Here's the reality. Let me say something. I'm going to say something.
Go.
Everything else is in play. If you get raped, God forbid. If there's incest, God forbid.
Yeah.
If you are there's a late term abortion or you have some pregnancy,
Complication.
some complications, God forbid. Of course, dude. And I think most states, if not all states, feel the exact same way. Mm-hmm. But this theory that it's going to be banned across the U.S. and so on and so forth is garbage.
It's a
and the
lie.
problem is people need to stop. Men and women. When I say whores, by the way, I'm also talking about men.
Yeah.
Both of you, both whores, men and women.
Yep.
Stop being whores.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a problem. Stop being whores. Stop. Wear protection and actually intentionally date. Go get a girl, take her out on a date. Don't have sex for a few dates. How about that? How about we change that? I saw this crazy stat the other day that up until 2007, 0% of people met online. Now, 61% of people meet online. You're on Tinder and Hinge and Bumble, and you're just trying to fuck on a Friday night, and that's the problem. And then it leads into what happens now. My point is, stop doing that stuff. Second thing I'll say, there are states out there. The reason why he brought it back to the states is because you take a flight to California with your friends, and you go party, and you go on bachelor and bachelorette parties. You spend money on that. But if you find yourself in a situation where you need an abortion or you have to have an abortion, you can spend the same amount of money and go right across the state line. You can take a 5-hour drive to California if you're in Arizona, if that's the case, and you feel that you need to go down that route and you have to have that medical attention, then you can go do that. You can hop on a plane at PHX you can hop right across to Colorado if you would like to. Again, we're in Phoenix. Stop being lazy. You can stop being a whore or you can stop being lazy. It's your choice, but it goes back to the states for a reason because there's choice. If I'm in proximity to you, that means that we have ideals that are alike.
Yeah.
So my state is different than your state, and that's okay.
Yeah.
It's not about left or right. It's about up or down. Killing innocent children is a demonic and hell-based conversation, period. Now, God help the people that have had abortions and all the 69 million babies almost that have been aborted that we have count of. God help them. But it's an up and down thing. My question was, can you be Christian and be Democrat? And the answer is no.
It's a fact. There's no way around it. And anyone who is a real church who actually follows the Bible is very clear. I mean, there is no LGBTQ flags. There is none of this racial nonsense because at the end of the day, God created us in his image, And the only difference between us, we all bleed the same red. We have perhaps different skin color and perhaps have different preferences, but it's very clear.
Yeah, I think, you look at Genesis 1, God made man and woman in his likeness and image to have dominion over everything and every place.
Yep.
Okay. So if you look at Genesis and the Bible specifically, that's what God did not say. God made they, them, and them to be somewhere in between. No, God made man and woman. Period. Adam and Eve.
Yep.
It is not Adam and Steve.
That's how it's
very simple. Dude, my dad's name's Steve. It's kind of funny. My last name's Adams, but it's not Adam and Steve. The other thing is, too, you look at this LGBTQ plus, blah, 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 trans bullshit. Here's the deal. If you look at Deuteronomy 22:5, look it up in the Bible. The apostle talks about how men should wear men clothing and women should be wearing women clothing, period. And if you mix the two or if you change the two, I can't quote it right off the top of my head, but Deuteronomy 22:5, you will see that Jesus does not approve, our God does not approve of men and women wearing each other's clothing or acting like each other, period.
Yeah.
So it is in the Bible. It is not a left or a right thing. The left thinks that is okay. The right does not, because we believe in the Bible.
Yep.
The question is, can you be a Christian and be Democrat? The answer is no.
Correct.
And you have weak people in the pulpit and weak people that don't believe in faith that have conversation and ultimately will not have these conversations. But you know what? We will. And we're only growing in our faith. It wasn't too long ago that we just started going to church. But once you know, you know.
Well, and the reason we got into it was because you see the absolute evil of the world. You see these agendas being pushed. You see these pride parades that are literally about, just perversion and disgust. And the sickest part is they're coming after the children intentionally. And do you know why most of these people, if you ask most people in the LGBTQ community, most of them, a huge majority of them, were abused as children, either by relatives or someone. And so it's interesting that now the teachers are pushing this on the kids very early, and they're trying to reduce the crimes for pedophiles to, in California, I think they're trying to drop it to like 14 years, or if they're above 14, it's okay for a homosexual person to have intercourse with a minor. And because what they're trying to do is take them from the parents because they cannot procreate. They've chosen a lifestyle where they cannot procreate, which is literally biblical. The reason we can bring about life in terms of every animal on earth is because it's man and woman can procreate and bring life into this beautiful world, right? Well, they cannot. So what they have to do is go for your children. They have to get to them early, young age, push this ideology, get them. And many of them will try to even molest, because once they've been molested, they think they've almost been tainted. And it's really sad. I know so many people, and they were sexually abused as children. If you're in that community, I bet you know a lot of people that were sexually abused at a young age by family or someone, and that's why they got messed up, because you basically destroyed a child's innocence and semi-corrupted them.
And that's
satanic in and of
doesn't
it.
Create Satan counterfeits.
Yeah.
And when you look at like folks that are in that situation or have come from that background, it's okay. Come to the church, confess, and repent of your sin, and God will forgive you. I promise you, it's the truth. I'm a sinner. You're a sinner. We're not the best people. We've done bad things, not terribly bad things, but bad things. We've repented. We've asked for forgiveness. We are believers, and so on and so forth. And if you're in that community, it's okay. In your gut, in your deep down soul, you know that something else is calling you. And when you are sitting there and you're putting sex as your God rather than God as your God, you are in a position where you're always going to have that pit in your stomach that you know you can't get rid of. And you look at, like we just talked about abortion, we talked about LGBTQ, so on and so forth. We're talking about politics specifically when it comes to all this in faith. If politicians just put God, whatever God it might be, I don't care if it's Buddha, I don't give a shit what it is, but if you put God first and not whatever you think God should be first. So, for example, if you put God first, then your wife, then your kids, because those two things don't go together. Mm-hmm. That's a problem with divorce, by the way, is you put those two things together. You put your wife and your kids and you call it family. It should not be that way because your wife was there before your kids and she's going to hopefully be there after. Divorce rate is over 70% after the kids leave the nest at 18. And the reason why is because the man stops dating their wife and realizes that she was there before and she's going to be there after. But then you have your work, then you have your sports teams, then you have your golf, and you go through this priority list. Politicians don't have this in order. One, most people don't have this in order. But if you can look at God first, specifically our politicians, we'll be in a much better spot and you can align yourself. But a lot of people, a lot of times, LGBTQ, the people that are siding with pro-abortion and so on and so forth, they're putting sex first. Like, you can't tell me that people aren't putting sex first and they're for abortion. That means that you look at sex as God.
Well, and
because if you can't wrap it up, you can't not have sex. Well, that means that you worship sex.
Yeah,
and
it has
if you
control
worship
over you.
sex above your morals, your values, or God, or whatever it might be, then that's the problem.
Yeah,
dude.
And yeah, and like you said, we're not here to preach. We're not perfect by any means. Yeah. But it's just interesting to see, I mean, we can all agree the country is not in a good spot.
Sure.
We can all agree our debt is out of control, which is another thing. If you just read the Bible, it talks about not having debt and, being financially responsible so that you can provide. I mean, this is all laid out very clearly.
It also talks about a tithe to taxes, a tithe to the church, which is what we should pay in taxes, which is 10%, not 40%.
I mean, you go back 2 generations, look at the world that your grandparents lived in, even our parents lived in. It was a different world. I mean, it was a patriotic country. We took pride, and immigrants were coming into. We're a nation started on immigrants from all around the world, but everyone came together and shared some values, and values is the most important part. It's not about your skin color. It's not about what country you're from.
Nope.
It is simply about, do we share values? So when you're bringing in people, 20 million people that come into this country that have different, complete, and I'm not talking cultural, again, skin color, different traditions, how you celebrate Christmas or the holidays or how you celebrate birthdays. That's all part of the melting pot. But at the core, you have to bring in people that have the shared values or at least want to try to share those values. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, no matter what, dude, I've said this forever. I said this even when I was at my last employer. I don't care what race, religion, creed, color, sexual orientation. I don't care who you are or what you like to do. As long as we can have our values aligned, we're going to go far.
Yeah.
Which that's the truth. It doesn't I don't care who you are. It's a values thing, and that's so important in finding a life partner. Just some advice. Have the same values.
Yeah.
You might not agree on everything, on maybe how you I don't know, what foods you like to eat or whatever the case is. I don't know, or what vacation spots you like or whatever the case is, but align your values. It's unbelievably important to do that when you're finding a life partner. But again, I don't care what race, religion, creed, color, sexual orientation. I don't care who you are. It's about aligning values. And the second thing it's about is a meritocracy. It's about, can you get the job done? Yes or no. This isn't a DEI hire. This isn't a, I'm not dating you because you're good for my image or whatever the case is. Or I'm not voting for you because you're the first black female.
Yeah.
That is not the way that you should run your life. You should run it off of meritocracy. There's issues that the voters care about. We talked about abortion, some other things. I have this handy-dandy paper. I do want to spend a good solid 10 minutes on climate change, but before we do that, I got some stuff for you, okay? So we got Trump supporters and Harris supporters, and you have an average of all voters. Let's talk through what issues, and we're going to cover these, by the way, on next 2 weeks from now. 2 weeks from now, our episode that we're recording next, just so you're aware. Just different policies regarding each one of these things. The number one issue that people care about, the economy.
Yeah.
The second, healthcare, which I think's that's fair. The third, which is interesting, Supreme Court appointments, and who you obviously appoint with inside of there. Fourth is foreign policy. Fifth is violent crime. Sixth is immigration. Seventh, gun policy, and this is out of 10. Eighth is abortion. 9 is racial and ethnic inequality, and last but not least is climate change, which is a good buffer. But when you look at that list, does any of them surprise you?
Honestly, no. I mean, economy is number one. People feel in their pockets. And when it comes to Trump or Kamala, again, everyone single person that you know
And on this list.
unless you're extremely wealthy and inflation is blowing up your assets and you own companies that it doesn't even matter. Money's not even real to you. The middle class and even the poor were doing significantly better under Trump's administration.
Sure.
Simple as that. That makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, I think what does surprise me is just if you look at 8th out of 10 is abortion. When you look at, I know we just talked about it, I'm not going to harp on it, but when you look at what the ads are,
Yeah,
it seems like it's the number one thing that people are worried about.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think, there's above the line issues and there's below the line issues. And when you look at above the line issues, like there's things that above the line, simple, above the line, things that affect me every day. Every single day that I wake up and God gives me the life that I get to have, and I get to breathe this fresh, beautiful air no matter where you are on this in the United States. That's an above the line issue. Below the line issue, something that I might encounter once, twice, maybe once a year. Those are things that doesn't really matter to me. And for me, number one's the economy. I mean, we're finance guys, so that's important to us.
But it's important to everyone.
It is. Foreign policy. I care if we don't get blown off the face of the fucking earth because we're incompetent or we can't communicate or we have zero strength, which those are 3 things that Kamala Harris possesses. She can't communicate, obviously, unless there's a fucking teleprompter. She can't. She's weak. And ultimately unorganized in her conversation, and I think that's number 2 for me. Violent crime and immigration, you can look at those 2 things hand in hand because the higher immigration goes, or illegal immigration specifically, the higher the violent crime goes. I want to feel safe in my cities. These are above the line issues. I don't want people coming into our country illegal that are unvetted and they don't know who we are. They don't culturally align values.
They don't care to either.
They don't care to, and then ultimately, guess what? They break the law. I think that's important. You look at other things, man, like climate change, or let's go through this real quick. Abortion, I might handle that once in my life if that comes. I don't know. I mean, God willing that Chloe has beautiful babies for us and Danielle the same, and all of you, and no complications. God forbid that. Racial and ethnic inequality, I think that's been ostracized over the last 4 years specifically. I think that we get it. We've had
since Obama came in.
Correct.
Prior to that, racial was not even a thing. It wasn't even discussed.
But we get it. We're there.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
I can't sit there and apologize for something that maybe my ancestor did 100 years ago. The only thing that we can do now is affect change and move forward. And just
treat
like
everyone
I said,
the same.
No matter what race, religion, creed, color, sexual orientation, I don't care who you are, I'm going to treat you the same. It's about meritocracy and values.
Yep.
But that's something that's below the line. Same thing with abortion. Supreme Court appointments, I don't know, man. Like, sure, that's important, but it's like...
Well, it's important in the sense of we have a certain amount of Supreme Court justices, and
affect law.
They stay in for as long as they want to or until they pass away, and then who's ever president at the time elects them, right? And that will kind of move the pendulum sometimes this way.
Sure.
So when you have literally leading Democrats talking about how they want to pack the Supreme Court, which means technically there's nothing in the Constitution that says there has to be this number. It's almost been an agreed upon law in the Federalist Papers that we have just worked on since basically the start of this country. So it's even, and that was the unspoken rule is, who's ever the president at the time gets to appoint. Well, so when you have one side who's saying, well, we're going to pack the Supreme Court, that means when they come in, if they don't like that there's conservative justice, well, then they're just going to pack with a bunch of Democrat justices to then push their election. Yeah. Now, understand, your side, you might be a Democrat, and you might be totally okay with that because, again, your agenda will be pushed. But ultimately, if we do believe in elections, the pendulum will swing unless there's no further elections. And so you have to keep in mind that if then a Republican comes in down the road, it's, again, assuming we have equal and fair elections, the pendulum must swing left and right. Well, then the Republican will do the same, and then they're going to bring back massive changes. The whole point of this system is checks and balances, with the Supreme Court and the judicial branch being one of those, which is why if one side is openly saying they're open to packing the Supreme Court, that's a major, major concern. That will change the history of the country.
Change the history of the country, 100%. Some would say that the Republicans already have, because there are obviously Republicans on that side that, Trump got Kavanaugh in, and the other gal, I forget her name, but anyways, that we are more of a right conservative leaning Supreme Court, as of right now, and some would say that we already have done that, and that's probably why they want to pack it the other way. The pendulum should not go from here to here. The pendulum should go from here to here.
Correct, exactly.
Because that's how politics are.
Yeah.
There's 10% of the left that are crazy. There's 10% of the right that are fucking crazy. Fuck them both. 80% of the general population in America, maybe a little less, is common sense, common approach, want the same things, and maybe the ideals have shifted a little bit differently, as we talked about with Tulsi Gabbard and RFK and so on and so forth. They stay the same. Everything else has moved. The pendulum shouldn't move that far.
Yeah.
Gun policy, we're both 2A guys. We both have guns. We both carry daily. You look at, you see these flip-floppers and Tim Walz and Harris and so on and so forth. She just got asked, what kind of gun do you have? And she goes, Glock?
Yeah.
I have a Glock? And I'm like, if I asked you what type of gun you would have.
Yeah. APC. Yeah. I got
exactly.
I got it all.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, it's P320 X5 Legion 6 hour. It doesn't have a safety. Well, you know what I'm saying? So she was lying right there. I mean, I ain't shit.
Yeah.
But it's the right to bear arms against
the fact that you said that, I was
government.
shocked, though.
Shocked, yeah.
Yeah.
She got
that was
prepped.
not a good move
it was
for
the
her.
earpiece.
Yeah.
But you look at, these people want it's the right to bear arms against a tyrannical government. The government has F-35s. We should have F-35s. They have tanks. We should have tanks. You shouldn't be telling me that I can't have an AR-15 or a pistol on my hip if I don't want to. That is my fucking inalienable right. It's the Second Amendment. That is what's going to happen. That's how I feel.
Yep.
Guns don't kill, or I'm sorry, bad guns don't kill people. Bad people kill
correct.
people, and that's the thing you got to understand. Every single person is crazy. All these shooters, by the way, are all on the left. Isn't that weird? By the way,
Yeah.
They have mental health issues.
Often identity issues.
Let's solve the mental health crisis, and we'll solve
ding.
gun policy.
Correct.
Last but not least, let's get to it. The last thing that anybody's worried about, but it seems like on the Democratic side, it's the first thing that everybody's worried about is climate change specifically, Green New Deal, this, that, and the other, electrical vehicles, all kinds of shit. First things first, let me say this, and let's get into these hurricanes and stuff like that, because there is climate things happening. You have the guy that has made the most significant contribution to climate change as a human being in the history of Earth in Elon Musk.
Yep.
He created fucking Tesla that has electric vehicles and solar panels
Yep.
and all kinds of different grid and electricity ideas and so on and so forth, electric ideas, so on and so forth for the power grid. He has made the biggest contribution in the history of Earth. Not you, not me, not anybody. I don't care who it is. He is the biggest, most significant contributor. And guess what? He just endorsed Trump. So you talk about climate change and helping the environment. This guy, who was historically Democrat, is the richest person in the world by far, and he has made the biggest contribution to human society when it comes to climate change, just endorsed Trump.
Yeah.
Why? That's crazy, because he knows that he wants to be on the right side of history. With that said, climate change specifically, you have these hurricanes. Let's talk about them. We got 4 minutes.
Okay.
Ready? Helene, talk to me.
I mean, climate change is such a it's nothing.
We have a whole episode on it. Go watch it.
We have a whole episode on it, so we won't get to it.
Yeah.
This is one that just fires me up, that human beings think that the governments, well, first of all, America is one of the least polluting countries in the world relative to the amount of people we have.
Yeah.
And it's all the rest of the world. We live on a planet with hundreds and hundreds of other countries and nations that don't listen to America, right? But we think that the government couldn't stop COVID. The government can't stop homelessness. They can't stop poverty. They can't stop crime. They can't stop illegal immigration. But the government is going to pass bills to change the temperature of the fucking earth. Are you insane?
Yeah.
Are you insane? That's my first thought.
And even inch by inch by inch, even if you try to get there, it's going to take hundreds of years.
Well, and it's all bogus anyways, right? It's the problem is not CO2. Elon Musk, who again he talked about, literally has been the biggest advocate for climate change. He talks about how the whole CO2 and carbon dioxide is the biggest bunch of horse shit ever. In fact, we should be grateful that we live on the earth now when it's warm, because guess what? The earth is a ball that's floating around the sun, which is floating in a galaxy, which is trillions and trillions of miles wide. And there are geological things. There's been points where the earth has been significantly hotter, and there has been ice ages in the last 100,000 years, right? And that has to do with the the tilt of the Earth and the orbital. Like, I mean, it gets so technical to think that we have so much power. We should simply be grateful that things are warm right now, because it's a lot easier to live with heat than it is to live when it's fucking an ice age outside.
Yeah, and if the smartest person in the world is taking that stance, maybe you should too. Just food for thought.
Correct.
You have Hurricane Helene came through, devastated a lot of western North Carolina and a little bit of Florida and so on and so forth, a little bit of Virginia. You had a response from our, I think the biggest indicator of a great leader is how you respond to adversity. I think that's maybe number one. And you have our administration that just saw many Americans, over 200, thousands that are missing still when Hurricane Helene ripped through the country, that part of the country. They offered $750 as a loan that you have to pay back when the homeowner's insurance and when the insurance companies pay you back.
$750.
$750. Yeah. And they said, well, that's not all. I'm sure there isn't, but that's a loan, by the way. Isn't that crazy how it's a loan?
Yeah.
You
better spend it right.
You had fucking Biden that wasn't even, he was on a beach. Kamala Harris was on Call Her Daddy. We covered that earlier. She wasn't even caring. She posted a video like this with earbuds in that weren't even connected to her phone, taking a call from FEMA. And meanwhile, FEMA has been spending hundreds of millions of dollars on immigrants, getting them housed and sheltered and have money in their pocket. And we're sending hundreds of millions of dollars from that fund, which is American tax dollars, going into a fund for things like this that are American tragedies and weather events that FEMA should be able to protect. They don't have any money to do so because we've been sending that money overseas to other countries to the tunes of billions. That just happened.
Yeah.
So if you look at anything, look at our leadership during that regard. Look at the adversity that we hit and the character that they provided. Now we have Milton that just came through. Did you see all the stuff about Bill Gates and what he's trying to do in Tampa? Did you see anything about that?
His new smart city. Yeah, so you want to go down this hall real quick?
Let's go. We got 2 minutes.
All right, 2 minutes real quick.
Look this shit up.
Helene was supposed to move this way. Instead, it moved eastward.
Where was it supposed to go? It was supposed to go towards Tampa?
No, the Helene, which
I know.
Yeah. It's
supposed to go towards Tampa.
It switched.
Went north.
Correct. It took a massive switch. Now you're going to call us all conspiracy theories, but please look this up. There have been bills passed about legitimately weather modification where they can put certain chemicals into the air.
Silver iodine.
Correct. To enhance rain, to draw about storms. Then you get into, the electrical waves. They can literally push the trajectory of a storm if all ignited at the same time. And so then you go even deeper. And you say, no way that's real. And then you see that there's actually laws.
The same thing.
There's no way that's real, but then there's actually bills passed about it. They've talked about it, how they do that. And then you realize that these certain airplanes that are able to do this, they were running tests that day right above North Carolina for over 6 hours, flying in circles. That's odd, right? Yeah. Then you say, well, why would they do that? This is a mountainous area where this happened in North Carolina. This has never had flooding ever. Flooding usually happens with lower elevation, which makes sense, right by the ocean. New Orleans, Tampa, Florida, Miami. Of course there's flooding, right? The ocean. Sure. This is mountainous to some extent. So how did that happen? Then you start to realize that it is the biggest reserve of lithium and quartz, which is what goes to power EV, which they estimated was like $400 billion worth. And there have been, prior to this happening, there have been big companies, private companies being pushed into it to die. And the people didn't like it. Anyways, look into all this. It's crazy.
Maybe let's open with this.
We'll go into a little more depth.
Let's open with this on the end. There's the cliffhanger. We have all kinds of stuff on climate change. Like, subscribe, and be ready for the next episode. We talk a little bit more climate change. There's more things that are going to happen. And ultimately, we're going to talk about policies. Get out and fucking vote and organize.
Let's go.
Thanks.